Welcome to the Money Huddle, a podcast that explores financial topics for families and small business owners. Hosted by Michael Baker and Ross Marinell. All opinions expressed by Michael and Ross or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and may not reflect the opinions of Planners Alliance. The podcast recording is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Planners Alliance may maintain positions in securities discussed on the program.
Welcome back to the Money Huddle. My name is Michael Baker, and I'm here with Ross Marinell. Ross, how you doing today?
Hey, Michael. It's good to be here today. So we had big news this weekend.
Oh, big time news for NBA fans. If you are into professional basketball, of course, the Raptors ended up winning the championship against the Warriors. But the dust has not even settled on that trophy, and all of a sudden the big trade rumors are becoming a reality.
Man, Toronto, they didn't get to have their parade before the Lakers dropped the Woj bomb, and the Lakers have made a splash, and they acquired Anthony Davis in a trade, trading away a host of assets that they had, including Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart, and basically
they gave away. If you follow, if NBA basketball is not your thing, there are not that many players that you can get on a roster. It's not like a professional baseball team or a professional football team. I mean, you only get really so many players. You know, usually 10, 12 players, maybe 2 or 3 that are, that don't dress out for the games. I don't know, but you could look at the bench and see that there are some teams that are not that deep, and it definitely feels like LA said, take whatever you want. We just want Anthony Davis, because they have given away several players and 3 years of first-round draft picks, one of which is the number 4 pick in the draft this year.
Yeah, so a big haul for New Orleans. And so this brings me to think about a topic that's near and dear to us as retirement planners.
Of course.
And that is the theory or thinking of delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification.
So here, let me work this out a little bit.
All right.
So if you're Anthony Davis, you're a superstar player, you're one of the top 10 best players in the league, if not better.
Right.
You're under contract for 1 more year. If your heart says, I want to play in Los Angeles, I want to be a Laker. And, hey, you'd probably like to play with LeBron James while he's still there. Mm-hmm. Best player in the world for a long time.
Right.
You have a couple choices, right? You can say, look, get me there now. There's no time like the present. LA, give up whatever you have to get me there, which they did. Or you could say, look, I'm going to play here for 1 more year. I'm a young player, still in my 20s. I'm going to play for a year here in New Orleans, and I'm going to come to LA as a free agent, and you don't have to give up anything but just sign me to the contract.
Oh, I know.
What do you think about that, Michael?
It's definitely, it's one of those where you have to think about it. Now, of course, the professional side of sports, they're all going to say you do what you got to do, you move, you got to take care of number one. At the same time, a lot of these players, like an Anthony Davis, that they get drafted up in the draft by these teams that aren't that great, because they're the not great. The teams that aren't that great are the ones getting the lottery picks.
That's right.
And so if you want to win championships, you have to start looking about where you go and be strategic. And, LeBron James has kind of ushered in this era where, 2 to 3 superstars is going to be what it takes to win a championship. And so you seeing, obviously you have to think, it's like weigh it out. Like, well, I could play here, and then I'm an unrestricted free agent. I can go wherever I want. And then the team I'm with has no sway over my future. Or, I tell my agent, let's make it happen no matter what. And it ends up happening where he's going to go to a team like LA, but LA literally I feel like swept the pantry out to get him.
They've given away enormous assets to acquire him.
Right.
He
better not get hurt.
Lakers, they may very well be favorites to win the Western Conference.
They immediately
win
were
a championship.
Yeah, they immediately
were. This also could end up being disastrous for their organization.
I think so.
And so that's the risk. And I thought it was a unique way to kind of look at delayed gratification, because obviously he plays a year, he gets to go to LA, gets to go wherever he wants. That team doesn't have to give up all of their prized assets that they've acquired over years of probably bad play, right? LA acquired a lot of those assets because they were terrible for a while and had good draft picks. And so now they run the risk of depleting their future assets. So you mortgage your future to do something today.
It is kind of to take a little bit of a. It is a little bit reminiscent of what Toronto just did with Kawhi Leonard, because they signed, and everyone thought it was nuts because they signed Kawhi with 1 year left. Now Kawhi is an unrestricted free agent. He could go wherever he wants, but they just won a championship. So
they did. My immediate thought though was Carmelo Anthony. When he went to the Knicks, he demanded a trade. He wanted to get out.
Yeah.
And then Knicks gave up everything to get him. Problem is they never succeeded from that point on because they just didn't have.
They didn't have any talent around him. Yeah.
So this is when we talk about retirement planning. The cornerstone of retirement planning is really delayed gratification.
Sure.
If you just think bare bones, if you are contributing to a 401k per se through your employer, you are deferring income you earned this year to receive it 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the road, whatever your retirement horizon is.
Yeah.
It is literally delayed gratification. It's called deferred compensation, right? It's money you earn today, but you're not going to receive it. So you're pushing off that gratification of having that income today. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the key things, and it's hard because one of the things that we're trying to do is, as we go through everyday life, day-to-day life, we have our routines that typically run us, run our days. And when we start thinking about, there's money that I could spend this money today and do X, Y, and Z more today, or I could put this money back. And I think that's why a lot of folks really struggle with understanding not just the importance of saving today, but how much they need to save today to have, funds in the future that will actually allow them to kind of maintain the same standard of living, because that math is not as cut and dry as a lot of people think it is.
Right. So I was thinking about this. Why is it so hard to do that? And I think there's a few reasons. And I wanted to use an example because, I love to kind of put things in context.
Yes.
So if we were talking about let's just take a 40-year-old individual today who has not accumulated much in the way of retirement savings yet, but they're still looking, hey, maybe they plan on working to age 65. So they have 25 years in the future here to still build a retirement balance, but you got to get started, right?
Right.
And so let's just say, for example, we're going to put $100 a week into a retirement plan.
Okay.
So $100 a week, we're looking at $5,200 a year. Let's say we do that for 25 years. So just consistently, I'm not growing the contribution. I'm just saying $5,200 a year for 25 years.
Okay.
We like to use a more realistic, plausible return over that period of time.
Okay.
Right? This isn't the Susie Orman show. We're not going to say you're earning 12% return.
No 12% return.
Let's just use 6. Okay. It's a good 6. Kind of middle ground. When you reach age 65, you've accumulated $285,293 from saving $5,200 a year for 25 years, right? That doesn't sound so bad. If I said to you, hey, look, if we got started today, $100 a week, when you reach retirement, you're going to have $285,000. You probably like, that doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, except I work in this business.
So here's one of the things. Here's one of the reasons why I think this is so hard.
Right.
The progress is slow. So if I looked at 25 years. Let's say I scrunched that down to 5. Okay, so if I did 5 years at $5,200 a year at a 6% return, at the end of that 5th year, I've accumulated $29,312. But I've also put $26,000 in there myself.
Sure.
So really, the early stage returns, it's not overwhelming, right?
No.
We're talking about making $3,300 over 5 years. What happens if you have negative returns? Do you get discouraged and just give up and say, this is crazy?
I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. It's that investing is, and it should be always considered a long-term gain, because we say this a lot in our office when people come to us and they have investment ideas, and from all walks of life, not just people that are retiring, but people that, maybe they sold property and now they have a sum of money that they want to invest because they don't want it to sit in cash, or someone that's, finally decided, now I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get invested and get started. But we always tell them, say, look, the market doesn't promise us returns. Just because we're ready to invest doesn't mean that the market's going to cooperate with us right out of the gate. And so it's like we have to be ready for the long-term commitment, because if you look at the math and historical returns, things like that, it's the long-term numbers are the ones that are most favorable. But the shorter we condense that period down, the more volatile the results can be. And it could be very well where you start out in the first couple of years, you're trying to put money into a plan and invest, you're not seeing a positive return.
Right. And I think it could be even if you were on track with your return projections. Let's say you're expecting, all right, hey, look, I know there's going to be years where I don't get a great return. There's going to be years where I do. If I'm going to average 6% and you're hitting it and you're 5 years in, you go, but man, I haven't even grown my balance by $5,000 yet. But the reality is you're completely on track.
Right.
But it doesn't feel like progress yet because you're still building, right? Compound interest takes time. And so I think that could be discouraging, is that the progress is slow even when you get started. And I think knowing that, hey, that $5,200 a year in 5 years isn't going to look like, you're not going to feel like you're on track to retire.
Well, that's great. And actually to that point, what you said, progress being slow, one of the things I was going to talk about today was this article that Morgan Housel wrote on his blog, and it was about 5 lessons that we learned from history, and it's a longer read. It's like, at least it's like 13, 14 pages long, so it's not something you can just skim through. But most of his stuff, if you read through it, we agree. He's like one of our favorite writers out there, so we enjoy reading his stuff. And that blog or that site, Morgan writes for the Collaborative Fund, so that's collaborativefund.com if you want to check it out. But lesson number 4 in that article was, progress happens too slowly for people to notice, but setbacks happen too fast for people to ignore them. Right. And it's just like such a perfect way to like a turn of phrase to say that idea. It's like, because, a lot of times in investing, it feels like, even though like we can look back and be like, oh, so it just feels like there's not progress happening. But a bear market, so a fourth quarter 2018 type of environment where we see the market almost, the S&P 500 almost drops 20% in weeks. We have 1,000-point down days. No one can ignore that, but it's ho-hum. 2017 was a phenomenal year, and no one was calling the office and saying, oh my gosh, do you guys watch what, no volatility, the market just continues to do what it's doing. It's crazy. So I think it's that's the same idea that you're talking about, is that, we tend to see, the negative stuff blares at us like sirens, but like the normal long-term good positive trends, we're so used to it that it's like it doesn't overwhelm us or excite us. It's not worth talking about.
Right. And I think too, it's just getting back to just the sort of grassroots of what people really think about and where some of the money goes and what the obligations are that we all have to meet, right? I mean, we all have to pay housing and food, and we have to care for children and get, there's real constraint in a lot of households because there are demands, especially if you're parents of young children. We've experienced the daycare costs and expenses, and the reality is there may not be a lot of extra income there to put away. But I think too, I had one more kind of comparison example I thought was interesting. If you want to kind of run through one more scenario here.
Well, let me close that loophole with this one thought, because he did. Morgan just nailed this topic, and in his final little blurb on that specific lesson, he says, understanding the speed differences between growth and loss explains a lot of things, from why pessimism is so seductive and why long-term thinking is so hard. And it's kind of like, so going back to Anthony Davis, it's like you're saying, it's like, he's sitting there like, God, I got to play one more year. I'm not happy here. I want this. I want that. It's like, man, if you just hang out, like they're ready for you. They're going to embrace you with open arms, and you're going to have a stable full of young talent ready to go. And now, I mean, yeah, you're going to get to go play with LeBron James, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be the Lake Show, but you guys are going to have to pull together some talent.
They're going to have to cobble a roster
Because
together.
you got to put 5 players on the court.
The cupboard is bare. But
right.
not knocking. They may go out and win a championship,
Hey, who
just
knows?
like Toronto did.
Yeah,
with
we may
Kawhi,
have egg
but,
on our face a year from now, but who knows?
It's going to be problematic to build that roster out. And so I thought I came across one quote.
Carmelo's going to come out of retirement and play for $1 million a year.
No.
He's going to come out and play for the veterans
No,
minimum.
not happening. Not having it. So I saw this.
You got one more.
This quote.
Okay.
It said, "Never give up on what you want most for what you want today."
Oh, that's
that was
good.
from Neil Maxwell. That was great.
Yeah.
No, I had an example that I
Okay.
just wanted to kind of talk through about
Let's go.
where we see some of the I hate to say the word worse, but one of the more unfavorable investments that people Gen X makes, right? People in their 40s is auto purchases.
Oh, buying
We
cars,
see
new
just
cars.
big. We see kind of
Well, down here in the South, we see big trucks
it's trucks
everywhere.
right.
Good Lord.
But I thought just look, for example.
I love
between-
trucks, by the way, but those payments are nothing to sniff at.
Hey, talk about seductive, man! I want to buy a new car every day.
I know you really do.
I think about it every week. Not a week goes by that I don't think about. Man, I could.
Yeah,
Wish I had over here.
You've well. Here's what's happened. You've bought many cars in your
I've
head.
walked the walk, and I look back and go, man, if I hadn't have done that.
Yeah,
So that's exactly what I'm talking about right now.
yeah.
Man, if
I
hadn't
think
have
I
done
should
that.
tell everyone that like the very first time I met you, you had this like sweet like Cadillac supercharged something or other V8.
CTSV,
Yeah.
550 horsepower. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm driving around with 2 car seats in the back.
It's
You know
right.
how ridiculous that is?
It's
I'm not speeding anywhere. I'm driving 35 miles an hour with
Dad
2 kids
was
in the back
Dad
seat,
was flexing so hard.
getting 12 miles a gallon. So that's exactly what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because this is the delayed gratification part, right?
Sure.
Because we all want to buy a $50,000 car.
No
But
question.
we don't need to. You can find a decent vehicle for $20,000. So that's the comparison I want to make. All right.
Right.
So if you bought a $50,000 car, you took a loan out for 60 months. Okay. So a 5-year loan, I'm saying you get 0 interest. Okay. You're like, man, 0 interest, 50,000. My payment is still $833 a month.
Right. But you
Yeah.
justify it because you're not paying any interest.
Okay. So now
800.
we're going to get a $20,000 car. It's also going to be a 0 interest just to make the math work. Okay. Now my payment's $333. So here we go. Delayed gratification, right? I'm not driving a $50,000 car. I'm driving a $20,000 car, but I have an extra $500 a month. Now I'm going to start saving my $500 a month. Okay.
Yeah.
Over 5 years at 6%, just keep it consistent.
Okay.
I've grown the balance to $33,822. But remember, I contributed $30,000.
Right.
And you might say, look, instead of $3,800 in gains, I might want that $50,000 car. But let me wind the story out a little longer. Let's say we put that $33,822 away. But look, I'm 40 years old, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5 years down the road. I still have 20 years to my retirement.
Right.
Now I'm going to let that 20 years sit there and just cook. Okay, I'm not making any more contributions.
Just letting that
Just
that
letting
5-year
it
deferral
bake.
go.
Just growing.
Okay.
So for the next 20 years, that $33,000 grows. And now it's $108,473. So now let me rephrase the question. Michael, would you like car A for $20,000, but also have $108,000 in your retirement? Or would you like car B for $50,000 and no additional funds in your retirement?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to answer it. I know the right answer, but I'm going to tell you, I want want car B. But here's the thing.
Still the $50,000 car.
But here's the thing. It's like what the point you make, and this quote came to me while you were talking was I was reading something this morning, and it said, you have to make decisions against yourself. You have to choose against yourself because yourself is going to want all of these wrong things. Yourself is going to want the piece of cake, right? But you want health and fitness, like you're going to have to limit your cake and your cookies, which I'm learning about right now. I'm having to relearn. you want to be able to retire one day. You want to be able to not just retire because you can't work any longer, but retire and go and do things and have that season of life where, hey, you've earned it because you've put in the time and you've saved. You have to decide, like, well, right now is not the time for me to buy a $50,000 car. Right now is the time for me to have a $20,000 car because, A, I need it to get me from point A to point B. I need reliable transportation, and I need to be able to save that extra income. And so, that touches on that point and we've talked about this in the past about lifestyle creep and other things. It's like where you might get a raise, you might get a bonus, you might might pay some bills off, and you're like, now I can go afford, if you're down here in the South, it's a truck, oh, I can get that truck now. But maybe that's not the best financial move. Maybe the best financial move is for you to stick with your used car or go buy something used that'll be, that you wouldn't be embarrassed to be seen in, of course. You put your teenagers in that one.
Right.
But, you don't go for the big fish right away because the delayed gratification, if you will, is you got to be able to see it. And a lot of people I don't think are, they either can't see it or they're not looking for it.
Well, it's tough because, like I said, you don't want to get discouraged with the progress. It's slow.
Yeah.
It builds over time. So don't give up, especially if you see flat or negative returns in the first few years. You might look at it and go, why am I doing this if I'm going to make contributions and lose money? It's because there will be periods where if you're invested in equities, there's going to be periods where you're going to have significant returns too. Immediate needs are probably going to seem more urgent and take precedence in some cases. And
that's why you budget. You budget.
Picking and choosing your battles, but making sure you're on target to hit some realistic savings goals down the road.
No, absolutely. Well, I got one more. One more article for us to talk about, and I thought this was interesting. It wasn't groundbreaking in anything, but it was an article that came out about a week ago. And I saw it on wealthmanagement.com, but it was the 7 most Googled financial topics in the United States. And what I'll say a generalized summary of it was these topics were basic personal financial planning topics. There was mortgages, interest, insurance, income taxes, how do income taxes work. There were things about childcare. There was nothing, there were no advanced, investment topics like, mutual funds, like you said, mutual funds versus ETFs, or what's the best, Sharpe ratio fund for XY. I mean, none of this advanced financial stuff that we oftentimes as financial professionals can get lost in and thinking of, oh man, and truly it's not. We can't overlook the simple things like, hey, estate planning. Like, why is estate planning important? Because for a family that loses a loved one unexpectedly, estate planning becomes like the most important thing in the whole world to them.
Immediately.
Overnight.
Yes.
And, I thought it was interesting. Obviously this past year, 2018, was the first year that everyone got to file taxes under the new tax code. So it goes without saying that was like the number one thing that was
right.
That was
so the
at.
Most Googled financial topic in the state of South Carolina was income taxes. Makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Trump tax code gets put into place. We've got a bit some sweeping changes that affect basically everybody that files taxes. Has some impact from that. In the state of North Carolina, it was insurance, which again I still think is
North Carolina and Georgia, like so many southern states, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, it was all insurance.
Which it makes sense if you've had group coverage under your employer, if you've had changes or you've had to go on to the Affordable Care Act exchange, you've got to go in and research what type of insurance plans are available.
Right.
There's not as much choice in some of those any longer, and so it does require a little bit of research. And so I mean those topics make sense. I think this is what it comes down to, right? It's blocking and tackling. It's like we've got to if we get the basics done and we lay kind of the groundwork for the investment allocation and start getting some savings going, those are the things that kind of rear up and affect people.
Yeah, another one on there, and you'll appreciate this one, but it was college planning costs, because again, that is, we just had all of our local high schools here just had graduation.
Right.
So you got the kid and colleges as well. So you got that crop of kids that have just graduated college and like, well, are they going to try to test the workforce? Or are they going to try to go back to school and have like postgraduate study? But you got this fresh crop of kids coming out of high school trying to go to college now. And, a lot of parents, sadly, are like, have delayed this, how we're going to pay for it till like junior year. And it's like, oh, wait, they want to go to college. Like, what are we going to do? And, we can't stress that enough. It's like, it still resonates to me this day when we sat through a college planning workshop, and the gentleman that was leading it said, if you're waiting to a freshman year in high school, it's like you're late. And I was just like, it doesn't feel that way. Even saying it doesn't feel that way. But like in the back of my mind, he's right, because we got to have time for, if you're going to try to put money aside and invest it and grow it, you got to have time.
When I have those conversations with folks that have young children, I will usually recommend you start saving, if you can't save for college, if your children are in daycare, because daycare expenses just
right.
It is.
I know where you're going. It's like the minute that the daycare stuff stops,
so you start the 529.
You start the college
savings the day the daycare stops. So you're accustomed to, or you have managed to cover that expense into your normal budget, right? And
that's one of my veggie tips, buddy. You remember the video we just did?
That's right. So you got to kind of keep that going, and as tough as that might be, it is, and it can be a challenge for a lot of families, is try and transfer that daycare expense into future college savings.
And the thing is, I think again, that's one of those. Like we said, we created a video where we talk about different financial topics, and one of them is like eat your veggies financial style, and that topic was already plan that in advance. And it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's like delayed gratification can be really hard if you haven't already made the decision. If you've already made the decision, like the minute that I'm done paying this, those dollars are going over here, your cash flow doesn't change. Your lifestyle doesn't change. It doesn't get more constrained or anything. It's literally just saying, hey, the money was going into this pocket. Now it's going into this bucket over here.
Right.
And so it's a great topic. One I'm sure that we'll circle back to. Delayed gratification. It's one of the hardest things. It's just human nature. We don't like to do it, but it's important. So thank you all, as always, for listening. If you got any questions, feel free to email us. Our email address is themoneyhuddle@vcplanning.com.
I want somebody to send us their best car purchase.
Yeah. Okay.
Ever.
So
Ross,
Ross,
the worst. Give me one or the other.
Ross is he's throwing down the car purchase gauntlet here. So for any of our listeners out there, send us your best car purchase that you think you've ever made, or the worst that you've ever made.
I love it.
Email us at themoneyhuddle@vcplanning.com. And as always, we will talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys.